Anyway, so I appreciate you guys taking some time to get a little bit of an update on our MultiClub international service. So most of you are fairly familiar. So we call ourselves the Mid-Columbia MultiClub International Service Committee. And so I will give you guys a little bit of an update on what we've been up to and what it looks like. So the Mid-Columbia MultiClub is comprised of about 8 clubs, 6 in the Tri-Cities and 2 in Walla Walla. You have a list of the clubs here. We got Columbia Center, Columbia Valley Daybreak, Pasco Kennewick. We have Richland Riverside, Tri-City Sunrise, Walla Walla Noon, and the Walla Walla Sunrise Rotary Club. With the Mid-Columbia International Service Committee, we are funded through each one of the clubs. And essentially the way this works, every year we contact the presidents and the international chairs and ask if they would be so kind to help us with funding. Each club has a different level of funding based on the number of members that they have. And the contributions range from about $1,000 to $1,500 to $2,500. Annually, we collect about $13,000 as a multi-club. And what that allows us to do is that we are then able to take this money and using the matching capabilities that Rotary provides, we are able to essentially multiply this amount by 3. And the way that happens is that the district matches 100% and the Rotary Foundation matches another 100%. We used to be able to do about a 3.5, but recently, because of the success of the Global Grant Project, Rotary ended up taking away the half, they have a 50% match. And so instead of 3.5, we are now at 3. For those who are some of the new members and some of the folks who haven't kept close attention to global grants, global grants have a few requirements. They have a minimum amount of $30,000. You have to have an international club, and that's where we usually come into play, and you have to have a host club involved. There are 7 areas of focus that that the project has to fall within. There used to be 6, but just recently Rotary added 1 more area of focus. The 7 areas of focus are the peace and conflict, prevention and resolution, disease prevention and treatment, water and sanitation, maternal and child health, basic education and literacy, economic and community development, and the last one to be added is supporting the environment. So what have we been up to as part of a multi-club committee for international service? I'm going to go back about 3 years, starting back in 2018. So in 2018, we started pursuing the Kenya project. And this was supposed to use the contributions from the different clubs for the fiscal year 18-19. And just recently, and then we started doing the Mali project for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. And just recently, we started looking at the Colima project for 2020-2021. So I'm going to kind of dive a little bit more into each one of these projects at this time. The Kenya project, like I said, started back in 18. It's a project that had been around for quite some time, actually. So it came around, went away, came back. And so we decided to give it another shot. And so that project was supposed to happen in Eldoret, Kenya. It was supposed to be a water sanitation project. That's one of the areas of focus of Rotary. And the project was going to cost us about $64,000. At the time, with the contributions that we had, as if you remember, about $13,000 annually, the 3.5% multiplier, with 3.5 multiplier, would only get you to somewhere around $45,000 or so. So we actually had to go back to the different clubs and ask each club if they would be willing to put in a little bit of extra money so that we could make this project a reality. So a number of the clubs did that. Pasco Kennewick our club was nice enough to allocate some additional money to allow for this project to move forward. We completed all the documents submitted to Rotary International. Unfortunately, this last November, we ended up pulling the plug on this project. And the reason why we did that is because we went through quite a bit of hassle to get information from the host club, and the follow-up from the host club was less than adequate. After we submitted to Rotary International, different folks have to provide signatures for approval, and it took us about 2.5 months with the information being out there waiting for the Kenyan district to go ahead and sign to allow for the project to be released to Rotary International. And they were not coming around and getting their work done. So we ended up deciding that based on everything that we had gone through, we have also been asked as Rotarians to be stewards of the dollars that we contribute through our contributions. And so we have to make sure that the project that we decide to get involved with will get to the end the right way and will be successful. And we just did not feel, after almost 2 years, if you remember, this project started back in 2018, but after almost 2 years of trying to pull this thing together, we still couldn't quite get it across the finish line. So we did not want to take any more risk. $64,000 is a significant amount of money to put on the line. So we pulled the plug on this project. And so pulling the plug on this project ended up putting us in a pretty good financial position for the years to come. So we will be looking to do a bigger project than what we've done in the past based on what our contribution levels allow us to do. So the next project is the Mali project. This project was brought to us by the Richland Riverside through Fatima. And it's an economic development project. That's the area of focus that it falls under. It happened in Mali, in the city of Bamako. That's the capital. And the host club was the Rotary Club of West Bamako. This project was about $38,130. We initiated this project back in March of 2019. By October, so about six months or so later, the project was submitted to Rotary International for approval. Compared to what we were just talking about with the Kenya project, where it took us almost 2 years to get to that process. After it was submitted in October, it was approved that same year, November, a month and a half later. And in February of 2022, the project started. So between November of 2019 and February of 2022, there's a lot of paperwork and money that has to get exchanged. So once the project is approved by Rotary International, the host club in Mali had to create a specific bank account just for that particular project. Once that's done, what we had to do as a community here, we had to take the money that was allocated for this project and we had to send that money to Rotary International. When we do that, we also have to indicate how much money is coming from each one of the clubs, because there are Paul Harris points that are associated with contributions that are made toward global grant projects. So that was done, and once Rotary International receives the money, they will wire all of those funds, including their matching contribution and what the district is sending, to the bank account in the host club country. And that's what happened sometime about January. And once that was completed, the project started in February of 2020. Until all that happens, projects cannot have any activities built against the project. It is not allowed. I don't know how it gets voided, but it's not allowed, and I believe that it voids the project. The project started in 2020, February 2020, and it was completed in October of 2020. This project was supposed to be a 6-month project, but because of COVID, they took about a 2-month delay. But the project went rather smoothly and rather efficiently. In November of 2020, that same year, the final report was submitted to Rotary International by the host club. However, to this date, we are still sitting and waiting for final approval from Rotary International. I have personally reached out to Rotary International to try to find out why it's taking so long. It doesn't look like they have provided any comments related to the report, but I think it seems like it has something to do with how backlogged they may have gotten with all the projects that may have happened and people working from home. So we're still waiting on this project to get closed out from a Rotary International standpoint. So the objective of that project in Mali had to do with providing income-generating activities for the women and allow them to raise their income level. So you can see pictures here of some of the women in their traditional attires going through some of the local foods that they learned to try to process. The training had to do with learning how to manufacture soap, drying and packaging of common foods, and then also teaching them ways to try to market a little bit better what they were about to be doing. And the target was to be able to hit about 300 women. In here, I guess I should say that in that bag, what you can see, I believe, is I'm not quite sure how we call that in English. I should have looked that up. It's called fonio. It's like a grain that's used that they've packaged up and plan on selling. So the 300 women were divided into 6 groups of 50 women. And as I mentioned earlier, this was supposed to be a 6-month duration with theoretical and practical training. And here you can see some of the containers they're using to where the soap was produced, and now it's being poured into a pan. And from that pan, the soap will be allowed to dry for a certain amount of time and then cut into the proper sizes. So the project was, I mentioned, $38,130. About $11,300 went toward the soap making process, $14,000 toward the drying and packaging. The trainers overall received about $9,000, and there was about $4,100 that was used as a startup fund for the women for the processes to help them get some initial equipment and other things like that to help with supply and material. And the spreadsheet here shows a little bit more of the makeup of all the costs, really. But I'm not going to get into the details of that spreadsheet. So here you can see different pictures that show essentially what happens. So on the left side you can see all the soap in one big plaque essentially. You can see here how it was poured into each one of those. And here's a machine that they use to be able to cut the soap into smaller pieces. And this is how the soap comes out. And then it gets packaged and sold to people around the country. Our next project that we are currently working on is the Colima Project. The Colima Project came out of the collaboration between City of Pasco and the state of Colima, and also some of our members that have been heavily involved in those discussions. But currently, Tri-Cities Sunrise is going to be the international club for this particular project. The project, as I mentioned, is in Colima, Mexico. The host club will be the Coquimatlan Rotary Club, and the intent is to re-equip one of their rehabilitation centers for a cost of about $30,000. This is a picture of that rehabilitation center, or you can see there isn't a whole lot, and a lot of the items seem to be pretty old and rusty. So we're hoping to get that project underway pretty soon. Currently, we're still in the planning phases. We started this back in October of 2020. Carl Holder and Jose have been tremendous help in terms of interfacing with the Coquimatlan Club in Colima. Although we have Tri-City Sunrise as the international partner for this particular project. So we are expecting to be able to have this project submitted to Rotary International by May of this year. So we hope that Tri-City Sunrise will be able to meet these timelines. But these are just timelines that were put together for planning purposes, so that we can try to keep track of what's happening and whether or not things are being done in a timely fashion. We expect approval in July, but given what's been happening with the Mali project in terms of getting approval for the final project, that timeline may get extended quite a bit. So we'll have to find out exactly what's going on there. And with that, we would be expecting an August start for this project and completion by February of 2022.
Can I make a comment here for you?
Yes.
We're really pushing to be able to have this project completed by the middle of September. So there's some training that needs to be done by the people over there at Sunrise Club, and so we'll be able to put this together and execute fairly quickly. But I'd like to be able to do this in the middle of September, and possibly to coordinate with the potential arrival of the governor of Colima to Pasco celebration. So thanks, Don, for putting that up on the Facebook page. Go ahead.
Okay. And so I'm going to skip ahead real quick here. There's one more project I want to talk about here. So those projects are the projects that we've been looking at as part of the Mid-Columbia International Service Committee that involves the 8 clubs. But as a single club, Pasco Kennewick has also been looking at doing projects on its own. So one of the projects that we started last year in 2020 is a project in Brazil. That project fell under the humanitarian area of focus. It's in Adamantina, Brazil, and the host club is the Adamantina Rotary Club. The project was for the tune of almost $60,000. And this project was also, we used this project to also dedicate to Paul Miles for all the work he has done as it relates to the international service. And so contributions were made at the time of his passing, and some of the money that we were able to get from those contributions have been utilized to be able to make this project a reality as well. So the project in Brazil happened extremely fast. By the time we identified the project in February of 2020, we were able to submit this project to Rotary International within a month and a half. So March of 2020, we submitted this project to Rotary International for approval. By the end of March, I have 2023. It was March 2020. By the end of March 2020, that project was approved by Rotary International to proceed. So in the span of two months, we identified the project. We pulled all the paperwork together in collaboration with the host club. We submitted to Rotary International, and we had the project approved. In April of 2020, the project started. And it took us a little while because obviously that was in the midst of COVID, and we were purchasing medical equipment. And everybody remembers in the midst of COVID, getting ventilators and things like this was quite a challenge. So it took a little while for the equipment to be delivered because of the supply chain disruptions that had been identified. But the first part of the equipment was delivered in October of 2020. By the time that was done, the dollar the value of the dollar in relationship to the currency in Brazil had increased. And because of the increase that was realized, we found ourselves with about an additional, with $11,000 of the $60,000 that was sent that were not spent because of an increase in value to the dollar. So we took that and we reached out to Rotary International and requested approval to be able to purchase additional medical equipment for that facility. That was done and approved back in November of 2020. And earlier this year, most of the equipment was delivered in January of 2021. So at this point of time, they are working through trying to figure out how to get all the equipment delivered to the facility and how to put in place a dedication ceremony. So part of the question now is trying to figure out, will all of this just be done virtually, or will there be an opportunity for folks to maybe try to travel and witness the project right there? So again, like I said, the project objective had to do with purchasing medical equipment. Here you can see some of the equipment that we were looking at purchasing. So surgical vacuum cleaners, respirators, electrocardiographs. They had automatic beds. And this is the list of all the projects. So up top that shows the original list of equipment that was to be purchased. And the section down below shows what we were able to purchase in addition. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we purchased 6 additional pieces of equipment, and we had originally planned to purchase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 pieces of equipment. So we were able to get about an additional half of the amount of equipment that we were originally purchasing. And this is some of the additional equipment that was purchased for this project.